Thank you, dear.
Of course. Is he all right?
The billionaire's gratitude, the rain hammered against the glass windows of Miller's diner like 1,000 tiny drums, creating rivers that streaked down the panes and blurred the neon lights outside. Inside, the warmth of the vintage establishment offered refuge from the storm, its chrome fixtures gleaming under the soft glow of pendant lights. Sarah Mitchell wiped down the counter for what felt like the 100th time that evening. At 26, she'd been working at Miller's for nearly 3 years, ever since her mother's medical bills had forced her to drop out of nursing school. The dream of becoming a registered nurse now felt like a distant memory, replaced by the reality of double shifts and aching feet. "Order up, Sarah," called Joe from the kitchen, his gruff voice somehow reassuring in its familiarity. She grabbed the plates and delivered them to table 7, offering a warm smile despite her exhaustion. The diner was unusually quiet for a Tuesday evening, with only a handful of customers seeking shelter from the relentless downpour. That's when the door chimed, and an unusual pair entered. The older man was clearly unwell, seated in a wheelchair that looked expensive but well used. His silver hair hung past his shoulders, wet from the rain, and a cream-colored blanket draped over his frail shoulders. His eyes held a distant, unfocused quality that Sarah recognized immediately from her limited time in nursing school. Advanced dementia or Alzheimer's, she guessed. Behind him stood a younger man in an impeccably tailored navy suit that probably cost more than Sarah made in 6 months. He was handsome in that polished, untouchable way that spoke of private schools and country clubs. His jaw was set tight with what looked like frustration, or perhaps embarrassment, as he navigated the wheelchair through the narrow space between tables. Sarah approached with menus. "Good evening, gentlemen. Terrible weather out there, isn't it?" The younger man barely glanced at her. "Just coffee, black, and whatever soup you have for him." He gestured dismissively toward the elderly man without meeting Sarah's eyes. "Of course," Sarah replied, her smile unwavering despite his coldness. "We have chicken noodle and tomato basil tonight." "Whichever," he said, already pulling out his phone. Sarah returned to the counter, her heart aching as she glanced back at the pair. The older man was trying to remove his wet blanket, his movements uncoordinated and confused. The younger man, his son, she assumed, was completely absorbed in his phone, oblivious to the struggle happening right beside him. When she brought their order, the situation had deteriorated. The older man was shivering, the blanket now fallen to the floor. His hands trembled as they reached for nothing in particular, and soft, wordless sounds escaped his lips. "Here's your coffee, sir," Sarah said to the younger man, who merely nodded without looking up. She set the bowl of chicken noodle soup in front of the elderly man, noticing how his eyes briefly focused on it before drifting away again. "Do you need anything else?" she asked. "No," the younger man replied curtly. Sarah walked away but kept watching from behind the counter. The older man was making feeble attempts to lift the spoon, but his hand-eye coordination was clearly compromised. The spoon clattered against the bowl, splashing broth onto the table. His son sighed heavily, rolling his eyes before returning to his phone. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The soup sat untouched except for the mess around it. The older man was becoming increasingly agitated, his soft sounds growing louder, more distressed. Sarah couldn't stand it anymore. She approached the table with a clean towel and a gentle smile. "Excuse me, sir," she said to the younger man. "Would you mind if I helped your father with his soup? I have a few minutes, and he seems to be having some difficulty." The man finally looked up, his gray eyes cold and assessing. For a moment, Sarah thought he might refuse, but then he just shrugged. "If you want to waste your time, be my guest." Sarah's jaw tightened, but she maintained her composure. She pulled up a chair next to the elderly man and picked up his blanket from the floor, gently draping it back over his shoulders. "There we go," she said softly, tucking it around him. "Better?" The old man's eyes met hers, and for just a second there was a flash of awareness, of gratitude. It made Sarah's heart squeeze. She picked up the spoon and dipped it into the warm soup. "This is chicken noodle," she told him conversationally, as if they were old friends. "My grandmother used to make the best chicken noodle soup. She'd let the broth simmer for hours until it was just perfect." She brought the spoon carefully to his lips. Here we go, nice and easy." He sipped hesitantly at first, then more eagerly as he recognized the warmth and flavor. Sarah continued talking to him in that same gentle, unhurried voice, telling him about her grandmother, about the rain, about anything and everything. She wiped his chin with a napkin when soup dribbled down, never making him feel ashamed or rushed. "You're doing great," she encouraged, offering another spoonful. "Just a little more." She didn't notice that the younger man had finally put down his phone and was watching them. His expression had shifted from irritation to something more complex, something that looked almost like shame. Sarah fed the elderly man the entire bowl of soup, taking her time, treating him with the dignity and respect that every human being deserved. When they finished, she wiped his face gently and smiled. "All done. How do you feel?" The old man's trembling hand reached out and patted hers. His eyes were watery, but there was unmistakable warmth in them. "Thank you," he managed, the words slow and slurred but clear enough. Sarah felt tears prick her own eyes. "You're very welcome." As she stood to clear the dishes, the younger man finally spoke. His voice was different now, quieter, stripped of its earlier arrogance. "Thank you, I should have done that myself." Sarah met his gaze. "He's your father. He deserves kindness and patience, no matter what condition he's in." The man looked away, clearly uncomfortable. "It's not that simple. You don't understand." "You're right, I don't understand," Sarah replied, her voice gentle but firm. "But I know that one day someone will need to show you the same compassion you should be showing him now. I hope they do it better than you're doing today." She walked away before he could respond, her hands shaking slightly as she set the dishes in the sink. Joe gave her an approving nod from the kitchen. 30 minutes later, the pair prepared to leave. Sarah brought them their check, which the younger man paid without comment, leaving a $100 bill for a $20 tab. "Keep the change," he said quietly. After they left, Sarah found herself thinking about them throughout the rest of her shift. She wondered about their story. What had brought such a clearly wealthy man to a place of such visible frustration with his own father? What burdens was he carrying that made compassion feel like too much to bear? She was closing up at 11 when the door chimed again. The younger man stood there alone, rain-soaked once more. "We're closed," Sarah said, then softened. "Is your father all right?" "He's in the car with my assistant," the man replied, stepping inside. "I needed to come back to talk to you." Sarah waited, exhausted but curious. "My name is Alexander Thornton," he said, and Sarah's eyes widened slightly. Everyone knew the Thornton name. The family owned half the commercial real estate in the city. "That man is my father, Robert Thornton. 5 years ago, he was the most brilliant, vibrant person I knew. Now," his voice cracked, and Sarah saw the pain beneath the polished exterior. "I'm angry," he admitted. "I'm angry at the disease that took him away. I'm angry that I have to watch him disappear piece by piece. I'm angry that I don't know how to be what he needs. And tonight, watching you with him..." He paused, composing himself. "You showed him more kindness in 15 minutes than I've shown him in months. You made me see what I've become, so focused on my resentment that I forgot how to love him where he is now, not where he used to be." Sarah's expression softened. "Mr. Thornton, Alex, please. Alex, I understand anger. My mother had cancer. For 2 years I watched her suffer, and I was so angry, at the world, at God, at her for leaving me. But I learned that people don't remember the anger. They remember the moments of connection, of love, of being truly seen. Your father won't remember much, but he'll remember the feeling of being cared for. You still have time to give him that." Alex was quiet for a long moment. "You said you wanted to be a nurse?" Sarah blinked at the change of subject. "How did you, the way you spoke to him, the way you handled everything, that wasn't just kindness. That was training." "I had to drop out," Sarah admitted. "Life got in the way." Alex reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "I want to hire you as my father's private caregiver, full-time with benefits, and will cover the cost of you finishing your nursing degree, evening classes, whatever you need. He needs someone like you, and honestly, so do I. I need someone to teach me how to be better at this. Sarah stared at the card, then at Alex, her mind racing. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, Alex replied. You showed me tonight that compassion isn't weakness, and patience isn't a waste of time. You gave my father his dignity when I'd forgotten he still had it. That's worth more than I can ever repay, but I'd like to try. 3 months later, Sarah walked through the halls of Thornton Manor, a smile on her face as she headed toward Robert's room. She'd finished her first semester back at nursing school, earning top marks while working days with Robert. The angry, dismissive man she'd met that rainy night had transformed into someone she now considered a friend, someone who sat with his father every evening, learning to feed him, talk to him, and simply be present. Robert's condition hadn't improved, but he seemed happier, more at peace. And Alex had learned that loving someone sometimes meant accepting them exactly as they were, not as they used to be. As Sarah entered the sunlit room where Robert sat by the window, she thought about how a single act of kindness, feeding soup to a stranger on a rainy night, had changed 3 lives forever. Sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest ripples, and sometimes all anyone really needs is someone who sees them, truly sees them, and chooses compassion. Good morning, Robert, she said warmly, and the old man's face lit up at her voice. Ready for breakfast?